Has been serving as ESPN.com's New Orleans Saints reporter since 2013. Prior to that, he covered the Saints for 9 years for the Times-Picayune. The Saints host the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday at noon in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Please give a warm welcome to Mike Triplett. Mike?
I really just came here to find out, who do I talk to about getting Iowa in the Sugar Bowl? Who is that? It's never happened before, but if you can turn the Zurich Classic into a two-man event, we can make changes with bowl tie-ins. Look, Coach Walters talked about the tumultuous season they've had, rough start. He could have easily been talking about the Saints. I don't know if special teams woes have derailed your season, but boy, if the Saints could do that and get a fresh start and get into the playoffs, I do think they're still a dangerous team. The thing they do not have, they haven't had for 3 years, is any kind of consistency at all. I think it's exciting to cover a team and be a fan of a team that has such a high ceiling. Beat the Seattle Seahawks, should have beaten the Denver Broncos. They can beat anybody. Could have gone into Carolina and won, even after a horrible second half. But to think they probably got to go 4-2, 5-1 to finish this season, it's going to be really hard to imagine. We just got done talking about LSU. They have to change the state of their program. They're changing out a head coach this year for the first time in a decade. I don't know what the state of the Saints is right now. I do think they are gradually a little better right now than they were last year. They were a little better last year than they were in 2014. I don't think that's what fans want to settle for, though, after getting a taste of the Super Bowl in those 13-3 seasons. But I do still think, look, I could scream to the rooftops for everybody who wanted to get rid of Drew Brees. Keep Drew Brees as long as you can. I think that people have really come around and seen that's the obvious decision. Let him keep playing. I think he's going to try to play until he's 45 years old. Let him keep doing it here. It gives you a fighting chance. The things that they've got to do better in free agency. They've missed so badly on all these high-priced free agents one year after another. The draft picks, I think they've done okay in the draft. The middle rounds have been really bad, but their first rounders seem to do okay for them. Andrews Pete is actually finally coming along. So I think what they are is a team that's trying really hard, but I don't think they need a major culture change right now. I think you'd love to see them get hot, win 4 or 5 in a row, either sneak into the playoffs or make a run this year. If not, they got to do that. They got to do that next year. But their offense is as good, really as good, almost as good as it's ever been around here with those young receivers. I think it's the best young receiving core they've ever had. I think Drew Brees is still playing great. The offensive line isn't as bad as people thought it was going to be this offseason. The defense, I still think it needs 1 or 2 more years worth of adding chips. But all of a sudden, these last 4 or 5 weeks, I just crunched the numbers in the story I wrote today. They've got the #1 red zone defense in the entire NFL since week 7. They've got a top 5 rushing defense since week 4 of this season. So they're making some strides there. They're finally becoming that middle-of-the-road defense that they've needed to be to pair with that great offense. Unfortunately, when they started doing that, the offense is starting to lose games for them with turnovers, and the special teams, oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like it. I know a lot of people, I don't know if it's the people in this room or just those people on Twitter who are demanding that they fire special teams coordinator Greg McMahon. I think that was a tough decision. We've seen Sean Payton lose his patience with 4 defensive coordinators that he's fired over the years. We've seen him lose patience with kickers every year. He's had 11 kickers in 11 years. But, Greg McMahon is an assistant that he's had ever since 2006. They won a Super Bowl together, and that included a huge special teams moment. We just celebrated the Steve Gleason blocked punt. Thomas Morstead's been one of the best punters in the league. But there are deficiencies there. The run game hasn't been good for years. These blocked kicks, it's unbelievable that they can't get that corrected. They've got a return man fumbling out of bounds. It's too late in the season to make simple fundamental mistakes like that derail your season. But I know it's driving everyone nuts around here. They just hired a veteran special teams coach to come in and sort of, I don't know where he'll be in the pecking order. They didn't fire anybody, but they've added another special teams coach to bring in new ideas. So we'll see if that can get things together. They got home games coming up against St. Louis and Detroit. You think they should win those 2 games? If they're any kind of a playoff team, they would be 6-6 after that. They don't win those 2 games. We're talking about the draft. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're running low on time here.
Yeah, I just noticed that they didn't fire the special team coach. They brought a new one in. So
Yeah.
what sense does that make? I mean,
Well, look,
I can't believe that he still has his job. 'Cause there's 4 victories that you can pin on the special teams that they lost.
right. But I mean, look, and it's a tough decision for a coach. I think I pretty much agreed with every defensive coordinator move that the Saints made, because it was just clear they had to go in a different direction. Scheme changes had to be made, starting all the way back to Gary Gibbs, definitely Steve Spagnuolo and Rob Ryan last year. With a special teams coach, are you trying to punish the guy? I mean, does it really help your team to fire him? Now, if it's a situation where I know last year they actually offered Rob Ryan the opportunity to stay on staff in a lesser role, but let Dennis Allen call the defense, Rob Ryan didn't want a part of that. Maybe they made the same offer to Greg McMahon. He said, listen, I'll keep coaching up my guys. I understand you got to do what you got to do. There's no shame in bringing in extra help without the punishment firing. And, Greg McMahon has done a lot of good things over the years, I'm sure. There's a lot of areas where he can still be a good coach. It's probably still a demotion in some way. He's probably got it's a hit to his pride, but that doesn't mean he has to be gone from the building, because, it's still guys not blocking properly. It's guys fumbling the ball out of bounds. It's stupid penalties. It's not necessarily a scheme change that they need, except for, I would say, maybe in the return game, which hasn't been good for several years. So I don't mind this approach. Like I was telling Ken before, I think they need to add an 8th and 9th official, I think, in the NFL in games. Adding is not a bad thing when you can afford to bring in other minds to help.
Hey, Mike, have they worked out any kickers, or are they going down luck?
Going down with Lutz. Yeah, look, here's the thing I would say with Lutz. Like I said, 11 kickers in 11 years. And I've never disagreed with a single guy they got rid of in any given instance for not getting the job done. But at some point, if you are going to find your Steven Gostkowski or your Sebastian Janikowski or some young guy that's going to last for several years, I think you've got to live with some of these growing pains. I think they think this is their guy. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted a guy in the 2nd round this year, and he's had a ton of woes. But that's sort of what the Saints, I think the Saints feel like this is a guy that is the quality of someone they might have drafted. And I think they're trying to say, let's have some patience, let's coach him up, let's teach him, let's let him get through these early hurdles and see what we've got, rather than just impatiently cut him, bring in another guy who's on the street and makes 70% of his kicks that they'd probably end up cutting next year. So you admire their fortitude with him, but boy, it's painful to watch those growing pains actually cost them games in certain instances. And I know everyone wishes they had just dipped into the Tulane pile a couple years ago for Cairo Santos. That would have solved everything.
Anyone else?
Isn't it ironic that last night's game with the Raiders and the Texans, where the guy makes the run down the sideline and the play's not called, he went out of bounds.
Yeah.
And it wasn't called. Kind of reminds you of the Saints game.
It is. Now, I will say this, though. I know I'm probably going to say the most unpopular statement ever here, that I think they should have originally called that guy out of bounds, but I think in both of those cases, whatever the officials called on the field was going to stand. I mean, it was the exact same replay, and I've seen that replay of the guy in the Saints game 100 times. I've seen every blown up photo. I watched it on my TV. I saw the DSU footage right down the line. I still don't know if the guy stepped out or not. So that's not what cost the Saints the season. They would have been bailed out if that guy accidentally stepped out of bounds. There are greater forces that the Saints can blame for derailing their season than an unlucky replay. But I know that is amazing, though, to think one blocked extra point doesn't get returned for a 2-point conversion and the Saints are in the playoff hunt. That is hard to swallow.
What about the health of Teron Armstead and
Delvin?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, the Teron Armstead thing is such a shame, because I think you could argue he's the 2nd or 3rd best player on the entire team. Had a red carpet arrival for his first Pro Bowl this year, now that he got so much attention, and he just can't get healthy. It's so frustrating, although Andrews Pete has done a really good job in his place. Delvin Breaux's the guy they've missed a lot more this year, with all the cornerback problems that they've been having this year, and he was playing so well. I think there's a good chance both of them could be back on the field this week after that 9-day break between games. We'll get our first injury report of the week tomorrow. But I think there's a good chance you get both of them back, if not this week, for the final month of the season at the very least. Delvinbro said he's going to be ready to roll for the final 6 weeks, so I think that could be huge. I think this team could be one of the top 12 or 15 teams in the NFL over the next 6 weeks. It's just at 4-6, is it too little, too late?
Anybody else?
All right. Well, thank you all very much.